Your subframe. There's a couple other steps that need to be taken apart in that, mounting the lines to the subframe. And if you have the ROPS model, this bracket here is going to go on. I'm just going to wait to install that till I have my lines mounted, snugged up, and tightened down. I left them loose so that I could still move them a little bit, so that I could line up the holes to actually nut them into the side of the subframe. So we're going to start on the subframe, which is page 26. All right. So they show you laying it in here across, using a strap here on the back to kind of hold it up, which is probably a good idea, and a jack in the front. It's kind of cool that they showed you that. That way you don't really have to think too much through it. They show you what bolts you need, 2M/1650s, and then it actually gives you what they need to be tightened to. All right. Now, you don't want to tighten all the bolts until everything's in and started snug down, and then you can go around and actually tighten everything down. All right. So basically they want you to get that in, and then I'm assuming number 3 here, which would be these M12/50 seam bolts. Okay. And then they have these other ones here on the sides. All right. Now, they got the top plate going across. Now, if you have the ROPS bar without that extension, like I said, I'm curious to see if I'm going to have to remove this and relocate that stuff with our extensions, but I don't think I'll have to. They give you a relocation kit for your toolbox to put onto the side, and then it goes through and it talks about the seat on the ROPS machine, which we're not using because we have the extended for the subframe with the cab, so we don't have to worry about swapping over our seat. We can keep our suspension seat, which is going to be pretty nice. All right, like I said, we're using model 4973, so here's some more for 42 or 62 and 63. All right, now we come down to here, and this is what we have. So we have the cab spacer. All right, like I said, we don't have to do any of this because we're running this cab spacer now. So that'll get 5 bolts into it onto the subframe. All right. And then it says to install your rear wheels. So, I mean, I just, everything so far looks easily accessible for me to get in without removing my wheels. So it's going to be something that I'm going to have to try. And like I said, there's multiple installation instructions in here. So this is for the 4985 kit. So we're going to go back here on page 26 at the start of our subframe for our B2650 tractor, and we're going to get that dug out. We're going to go through our bolts and separate them out. So here we go. All right. So I would say anytime you do anything like this and they throw everything in one bag, lay out all your bolts so you can see what you have. Okay. So that's kind of what we did here. Now, we're looking at this here. Where's it at? Let's back up. No, oh, it's on this one. There is showing that there's 2 up here in the front with nuts, washers, and bolts, I'm assuming. So then there is going to be 4 that go into the differential. So that's going to be a total of 8 there. That's 6. We have 4 and 4. So there's 8. So I'm going to see where they fit. And then the 2 front ones up here. Now, Dean's mine has the, where's we got? Dean's mine is this. Like I said, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we have 2, 4, 5, 2, 4, 5. Okay. 4, 5, 4, 5. I think that's going to be for the additional subframe mount. It looks like they're going to get washers also, 3/4 hardened plain washers. So that's going to be these, and spring lock nuts. So it's going to have these. So we got 1, 2. There's 4. There's 5 of these. Okay. So that'll be everything for our additional mount that gets connected back here, right there. Now up here, there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of those. Okay, now I'm sure some of these are going to be the longer ones. So we have 2 and 2, and those are M16 by 50 bolts. And then they have the 5/8 plain hardened washers, which I think are these here. 10 of those, so I'm not quite sure. So what I'm going to do is up in the front, 3 right here, M12. So those look like they're a little longer. M12, M16. So I'm going to figure out exactly what bolts go in what location up here and around this rear axle housing, which I believe that those are these. And I'm just going to try to see if they thread in. And I'm going to double check everything and get any washers or nuts that we need for doing our assembly for our sidebar, and I'll get all that stuff set up and I'll show you guys what parts go where. All right. We got all of our bolts picked out. These are the ones that are going to go into the front. There's two nuts, a flat washer on each side, and 2 spring locking washers. They'll go through these holes right here for this part. All right, I'll come around to the back. Now in the back, these bolts here go into these 4 here. All right. Now, since they weren't originally installed when this was new, there was dirt and stuff in there. Okay. So I'm going to show you what I used to get this out. You want to make sure these will screw in all the way before you do this, because I'm sure that piece right there is pretty expensive. So you don't want to break that. This is some of the dirt that actually came out of the hole. All right. So I used compressed air. I used brake cleaner. I used a small brush. I also used, this is a little wire brush. It's 1/2 inch. It's pretty worn out, but you would probably want to get one a little bit smaller. And basically it's like a barrel brush. This one here is I used to clean out the welder tip on my welder. But it worked fine. For this, I just kind of shoved it in, spun it around, sprayed it out, and then WD-40'd, made sure that stuff was good. All right, so right now I'm at the point where to lift this up. There's also one other part. Now, those bolts hold this on, and that's what you do in that step. Now, in your next step, there's 3 bolts here because there's a bar that runs down to support it across the top here. Now, I also took a brush and my cleaner and made sure that the bolt that goes into here would spin in here freely. Okay. Now this, all I did was technically this side, which is my right side as I'm sitting in the tractor, because I'm sticking this one on, and then I'm going to clean the other one. But I want to go through the process of getting one side installed, and seeing as this is the one with the hoses, we can get everything tightened back up, and this side will be good. Now I'll show you guys this side, and then I'm going to get the other side on. So here we go. Using the technique that they had shown in the picture, I have a strap holding this back side up right now, and then up in the front I have a jack, floor jack. Okay, so there's that. Now these will get a flat washer, come through from the back, another flat washer, spring washer, and a nut. Okay, I repositioned the strap to pull it more this way. It still has to go up a little bit, but these are the bolts. So I'm just going to stick my hand back in here. I'm going to put it through, and then I can lay underneath and push up on this here just a little bit. I'm going to finish getting these installed, and then I'm going to go from there. I'm going to look to see what I need to get these here installed onto the plate and get them snugged down, along with the other crossbar plate, and get that one installed also. Something here. I ended up double checking because when I got these started, I was like, everything else has a flat washer on. So these get a flat washer underneath the lock bolt, which is nice. Then it doesn't damage the coating on the subframe itself. Those sidebars are exactly the same. I double checked it. That actually this side goes in like this, and I'm sure the other, well, I mean this way. So it clears this one lower bolt because there's 3 that go in there of the long ones. So it goes on this way. I'm sure it goes on the same on the other side. Now, I got this started. So this one gets the 2 bolts back here, flat washer, lock washer, and nut. All right. Okay. There's 3 in the front. But these are also back here. All right. Now there's 3 of these. If you look, this one here is slightly shorter. These 2 are longer. The slightly shorter one will go here. This is probably why you have to remove your wheel. No. So there's why you have to remove your wheel. If that would have been something I would have known before I actually inserted the whole pipe, I could insert this as an assembly, which I might just do. So this would be the reason why you have to remove your wheel, would be these 3 bolts going through here. All right. Now at this point, I can still slightly undo this and backtrack. If you have removed your wheels, you can install these 3 up in the front with the washers and the nuts. So I'm going to look at this and decide which way I want to go, whether I want to take the wheel off or I'm going to just loosen that bar and pull it out and put the bolts in first, because it looks like if you have them in there and you slide that pipe, slide the support frame up in, you won't have to remove it. So let's see what happens. All right, so I was able to accomplish this without having to remove the wheel. I took one of the 2 bolts out front to let this drop down farther in the back. You see I got a jack stand under there. I also had to remove this line, but none of them are tight. So all I did was just take it off, set it to the side without getting any dirt in it. I was able to insert this first one, this bar, and then this first bolt through. And as I was picking it up, I started to insert the second one into this outer support bar here. And when I got it lined up, I was able to push it into this. So now all those bolts are in. Now I just need to get everything started, get everything lined up, and then I'm ready to torque everything down. So we're reinstalling the ones here down on here. Okay. Now I'm going to go up to the front and get those bolts installed, and then I'll show you guys an overview of what everything looks like started. Well, we successfully have this on here without having to remove the wheel. So here's what it looks like from the back. I have the bolts that hold the lines in place are tight. The lines themselves are tight. All of the other bolts are snugged up to the point where they are together and everything's kind of seated in place. So that's kind of what it looks like from back here. This is up here in the front, right here. Right up through there. There's a shot through there. You can see up through, underneath. everything's on there. All right. So that right there is pretty much gonna complete the whole right side here. I do have to put the hose on, and I'll do the mount for that. So we'll get to that here real quick. I didn't tighten down the hose because with a little bit of extra in the way, I can still get in there to tighten up the hose. So I'm going to do that and get the bracket that's supposed to hold them installed now also. Would you just check that out? We got both. Stuff to trip over here. Gotta watch out for that. We have both bars in all the way down on both sides now. Everything is snugged up. Basically, I made myself a little checklist right here. So the 4 that go around the axle, they get 59 foot-pounds. The front 2 bolts in the sub bracket. The ones that go into the ROPS bar from the sub bracket and the support bracket. And the support bracket bolts are all 145 to 166. So I am setting these here. I'll get those tightened up. Right now I have it set at 55. I have my other torque wrench set up for 150. So we have them right here. Okay. So I'm going to put you guys on the tripod and I'm going to torque this down. Normally what you do is if you set your torque wrench, set it to where you want it to go here. When you put it on and you get to a certain point, it'll make like a little pop, like dink dink. But you'll see it here. Let's get into here. Okay. Alright. That's tight. Alright, so I got all of those torqued down. The battery did die. So I have my 1/2 inch torque wrench. So I'm going to start working on getting the rest of these torqued down. These ones up here I'm sure need to tighten more. Okay, there we go. There's that one. All right, I'm going to get the rest of these torqued down. These ones here toward the back, right here. You got to just kind of figure out what the best way is to get in here at these. Seems like it's going to be over here on this one. I have the wrench for this side to help it stop spinning. So like I said, these get torqued down also to 145 or 150. All right, I'm gonna get the rest of these done, and once these are torqued down, that finishes up the subframe kit part that gets bolted onto the tractor itself. Once that is done, I can start it up. I can double check for hydraulic leaks. I think I'm gonna set the bracket for this right here, and then we're off to bolting the rest of the subframe kit and the seat onto the backhoe assembly. As I'm mounting this bracket on top of the foam pad that it comes with, that's supposed to hold this, okay? And you get your line up into here, and that holds it back out of the way from hitting the tire and stuff. The tire, the 3-point implement, you know, it's kind of why it's got this on here. I'm kind of fitting this in here. It is on. They do give you the larger one, so I'm just kind of extending it with another smaller clamp so that I have something to work with. So if I need to readjust this or move it when I find I put another implement on or something, it's always, I can do it. It's easy enough to do. All right, now basically we're at the point of starting this thing up and seeing, how could you say that? Double checking for leaks. All right, so far so good. I think that this will be enough for one video. So I'm going to make this in a couple parts. So basically this is the entire subframe kit is now bolted onto the tractor. Everything's torqued down. We just checked for leaks. So that part of the install is actually finished. We do have the seat, the subframe extensions that go onto the backhoe itself, and the seat bracket to install. I put all of those screws and bolts and washers and nuts all into one bag. But that'll be for the next video when we go out to the assembly, the bh77 assembly that is in the skid, and we start unskidding it. So thanks for watching this one. Catch the rest of the install and getting to use this thing. It might be 2 or 3 videos. We'll see how long it takes to get the other one up. It shouldn't be long. Thanks.